Good morning, North Carolina. Good morning and greetings to all of you, companies, exporters, business experts. We're delighted that you've joined us today. Thank you so much for taking the time, as we're going to talk about e-commerce, how to do e-commerce internationally and globally, and all the helping hand that your state has put in place to help you climb up that e-commerce ladder and really reach your international target markets. So just while the last of you are logging on, a little bit of housekeeping for this webinar. You're all on mute at the moment, but we really appreciate your questions. So pop them into the chat box, the question box, and we'll get to them at the end. We've allocated time at the end. The webinar overall is scheduled for about 45 minutes. We promise to get you back to your desk, so your kitchen table or wherever it is you're working from, within the hour for that. We've tried to make this as practical and hands-on and action-oriented as possible. So there'll be some handouts and some surveys and some polls. And again, we would really appreciate your participation on that. With that, I think the best thing I can do right now also is to perhaps introduce us and introduce all of ourselves. So my name is Susanna Hardy. I'm Chief Content Officer for IBT Online, and I'm delighted to be here. So I'm very focused on the content side of websites, of marketing, e-commerce platforms, and so on. So I'm basically all about content. I'm joined by my terrific colleague, Samantha Sovici, who's Senior Online Business Development Manager for IBT Online. And Samantha is a absolute fearless champion of everything online, and has a lot of experience in helping companies on their strategy, on their online presence, globally, and so on. And she's always in good humor, no matter what the question. So again, put in your questions and we'll get to them. And we're absolutely delighted and very proud to have John Loyack join us. And John is Vice President, I'm sure known to many of you, Vice President of the EDPNC of North Carolina, the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina, and is a absolutely tireless champion of North Carolina companies, and has put in place a lot of innovative programs and help, and is keen to make sure that North Carolina companies come out of all of this time for the better, so survive and thrive, as it were. And I will let John talk about the programs a bit more and what the EDPNC is doing as well. First, also, just a very brief point about who we are as a company. IBT Online stands for International Business and Technology Online. So we're all about online tools for exporters, for companies, basically. We believe that all companies, not just the big companies, but all companies, no matter what their size, can use effective online business tools to grow their business, domestically and internationally. You can punch right up there with the big guys, no matter what. If you have the right websites, if you have the right online marketing strategies. We are really also pleased and pretty chuffed and pleased with ourselves and very proud to have been just awarded the President's E Award for Export Services this year. So that's, as you can see on the slide, it's called the highest recognition of that a U.S. company can get to help exporters. So this is part of our mission. It's part of our vision, our mission statement to help exporters. So we were really pleased about that. We're a U.S. company, we're a private company, and we are really pleased that we are helping North Carolina companies to grow their businesses internationally through the online global programs that we do in collaboration with the EDPNC. For today's webinar, we thought we'd split it up into 6 big parts. So I'm going to start with John talking a little bit about the EDPNC resources for North Carolina companies and some of his team members. And then we're going to jump right into the matter about e-commerce and start off by really drilling down into a little bit about what is a buyer persona and what is their localized journey, because it's really important to understand those 2 concepts to make sure that your strategy is correct when you're looking at an e-commerce strategy for global markets. Then a very brief overall picture, just a big landscape picture about global e-commerce, what are the big players. And then a couple of major strategies that we find companies take when they're looking outside the domestic market. So when North Carolina companies are looking, say, okay, where should I go? How should I do this? For 3 or 4 different strategies you can take. Then a couple of sort of scenarios on best practices and some detail on the online global programs themselves and how you can benefit from that. And finally, summary and takeaways, and most of all, Q&A. So like I said, drop in those Q&A. Right, so with that, I'd like to turn over to John, and where you can talk about North Carolina and the EDPNC. John.
Susanna, and it's I find myself, as we continue on through this the times of COVID, that I'm grateful for the little things. You know, in the past, this is our work with North Carolina companies typically has us on the road a lot. We're not able to do that, but I am grateful that we've got the type of tools that allow us to reach out to the business community of North Carolina and let everyone know what types of things are available to them. And I think what is exciting and what I am grateful for is that we have some great programs, and I just want to take a few moments to talk a little bit about them. And first, just a little bit about the organization. We are an organization that remains dedicated to advancing the North Carolina economy overall. We do that in a variety of different ways. We continue to recruit new businesses, and anyone involved in the aviation industry in North Carolina would see that there was a massive announcement earlier this week. Pratt & Whitney announced they're coming to the Asheville area and putting in what is a type of facility that will make a significant impact, you know, on that community, but on the region overall. It's going to have an impact on multiple states. We also have our tourism team. It's leaf season here in North Carolina, or coming into the end of leaf season. And we're grateful for the beaches, the mountains, the golf courses that we have here. I will say this, you know, as a call to all of you, that we need to do whatever we can to continue to support small businesses that are part of the tourism network statewide, because it's an industry that's been impacted massively by this. We know that over $6 billion in losses have been incurred this year already. And so we want to encourage everyone to continue to do what you can to support the North Carolina tourism community. And then the groups that I manage, we are focused on existing industry. And so we have a team of people around the state who are there to support your businesses and help you with whatever issues you might be dealing with. Consider them a matchmaker. If you've got a question that needs to be answered literally about any issue, this is a group that you can turn to, and they can help you find answers you need. We've got a small business support team. North Carolina is home to very close to 900,000 small businesses, and we want to keep every one of them going through this. My take from the research that I read is that the recovery is going to be a multi-year process. And so we are proud to play a part of, you know, a support role supporting small businesses. But enough about all those other divisions. The group we're here to talk to today is about our international trade team. And this is an international trade team that really does have some exciting services that we'll see on this next slide. Certificates of free sale. That's something that if you work with, if you're dealing and doing business in a country that requires a certificate of free sale from a state agency, you call us. We can help that. We've actually seen a lot of activity in that area. And so if you run into a business needing a certificate of free sale, please call us, as well as any other issue you might be dealing with. And so in the past, I think we're best known for the market entry strategies we do, the trade show assistance that we provide, but we're not doing that now. And so we've pivoted to offer a series of webinars throughout the year to explain to people what some of the things we can be doing, because even though exports are down this year, there's still a number of things that we can do without getting on a plane that can keep exports going. And we want to talk a little bit about that today and talk to you about an opportunity. From my perspective, in terms of a call to action as a result of this call, the next slide will show you our contact information for our team. These are folks that are based here in the state that can work with your businesses today. And so if you don't know who your specific international trade manager is, I'd recommend you go to our website, edpnc.com, take a look at our pages for export assistance, and find contact information for one of these people who can help you, whether it's something specifically related to exports or maybe one of our grant programs. We've got a great team of people who are ready to help you today. And the final slide is just one that's designed to lift us up a little bit, and then I'll turn things back over. The website that we have here is one that is a really robust collection of resources. As we learn about new COVID-related resources, grant opportunities, loans, new programs from the Department of Commerce or Department of Revenue, we put all of those up on this website. So I'd like to call this out and encourage all of you to come to the website as needed. We have just updated, as of last week, the latest NC COVID resource page that we have. This has been easily our most popular document over the last 7 months or so, but it'll give you a link to some really important programs, as well as information from the governor's office and from different state and federal partners around it. So if you're struggling with something and need to keep your business going and are looking for some specific resources, please take a look at that. Well, with that, I'd like to turn it back over, but just kind of a closing comment from me is that what I'd like everyone to reflect on is that in this day and age when travel is limited, and we all know it is, e-commerce options have become critically important. This may be very new to some businesses who traditionally are focused on B2B relationships, and many of you may think the term e-commerce is something that would be more associated with direct-to-consumer sales. It doesn't have to be that way. This is a great way to reach out to an international community, and it's something that will also benefit your domestic sales as well. And so the good news is the SBA has partnered with the EDPNC to offer a program called the STEP grant. And this program has provided us funds that allow us to provide grants to qualified small businesses looking to optimize their websites for international sales, as well as expanding their e-commerce infrastructure. And so today we're going to talk a little bit more about what that looks like and what can be done. As a follow-up, I'd recommend you reach out to one of our international trade managers and talk about what you can do to get your infrastructure in place and begin selling internationally over the internet. Final comment from me is just that research has shown us that international travel will continue to be extremely limited through perhaps even second quarter of 2021. This is the kind of things that we keep our eye on. We know it's that way. So now is a great time to invest in your e-commerce platform. So with that, Suzanne, let me turn it back over to you.
Excellent. I will actually take over for a little while, starting with the international buyer and its localized journey. So before we dive into the nuts and bolts as to why e-commerce and how to do it internationally, I think it's absolutely necessary that we start with defining your buyer persona. So as HubSpot defines it, a buyer persona is a semi-fictional representation of your ideal customer based on market research and real data about your existing customers. So the point about defining your buyer persona is that it allows you to make sure that you're always reaching to the right person at the right time with the right message, saving you and your company just a ton of time and resources. And this is really important when talking about international e-commerce and domestic e-commerce for that matter. Mistakes can be expensive when you're going global, so it's important to get the baseline correct. If you try to accelerate your sales process without knowing who you're selling to, you might accelerate into a complete dead end. So here we have an example from ZipCar, which they have such a clear idea as to who their buyer persona is that they actually included it in their mission statement. So they're looking for people who are urban, educated, tech savvy, and environmentally conscious. And their communication strategy, so in this example, we have an Instagram post, completely speaks to who their buyer persona is. So here you see two people who look environmentally conscious because they're holding plants. They look like they're in an urban environment. And ZipCar goes a step further by using the appropriate hashtags. So hashtag dorm life, hashtag back to school, and hashtag plants to really talk to their buyer persona. But identifying your domestic buyer persona is just one part of really understanding who you're trying to reach out to. Taking a step back, you need to identify who your ideal corporate profile is first. So your ideal corporate profile is your ideal client or user. So you need to define it as either like a big corporation, a small mom and pop company, an OEM, a direct consumer, all those attributes that define your ideal customer, your ideal corporate customer. But a buyer persona is not the same as an ICP or an ideal customer profile. You need to go a little bit deeper into subcategories. So for example, let's say you're a B2B company in advanced manufacturing. Your buyer personas would be the CEO that makes the ultimate decision, but that's based on talks with his engineer, maybe his his head of sales and marketing, maybe a research analyst, each with their own set of challenges and specific pain points. So your buyer persona will define the people in those companies who you need to work with, to connect and engage with about their challenges and how your business can solve those issues. Each buyer persona will have specific questions, concerns, and roles within those customers. And it's important to keep in mind that your ideal corporate profile and your ideal buyer personas will probably look different for your international target markets. So especially in the times that we're in today, international buyer personas can differ from your domestic buyer persona. On this slide, there's a few questions that you can ask yourself, like, are there multiple buyer personas for my export markets? How do they find me? What do they care about? How do they interact with me? Are their concerns different from my domestic buyer persona? And here we have an example from L'Oreal, who is frequently cited for how spot on they are for their international online marketing. And these snapshots were taken towards the beginning of COVID-19. So this was when people were starting to shut down, starting to socially distance. People weren't going to the salon or to their hairstylist. So in this snapshot, L'Oreal is talking to their US consumers that they are there for them, that in these difficult times when business isn't going on as usual. However, in the next example in L'Oreal Australia, the message is totally different. There is no mention of COVID-19, coronavirus, socially distancing, nothing. Instead, the focus is on the climate, because as we remember early on this year, Australia suffered through some pretty horrible fires. So they know that their buyer persona really cared about the climate at that time. And then in the last example, L'Oreal Brazil is demonstrating to its Brazilian customers that they are doing their part to help the people of Brazil by producing something that they don't normally produce, which is hand sanitizer. So each buyer persona is clearly different, and their messaging is respectful of that. Over to Susanna. You might be on mute.
I was on mute. Apologies. I really just wanted to say sort of, what are the priorities for your buyer persona today? We all know some of the priorities for this sort of new online time about looking after employees and costs and supply chains. But, where we come in terms of online business development tools like your websites and your online marketing is how to generate sales, how to save your exports, build your exports. So that's really what we're going to be focusing on our side. So, on that, it's just what we like to call survive to thrive. Just a very quick view as well on what we mean when we talk about this global use of internet. There's no doubt that this year has seen a big surge in the number of people online and the time that they spend online. And it's worth remembering some of those big numbers. 60% of the world's population, that's nearly 4.7 billion people, 60% of the global population is on the internet. And they're on the internet for nearly 7 hours a day. 7 hours a day, 4.7 billion people are on the internet. And that's some stunning numbers worth keeping in mind. And one of the big things they're all doing is they're all communicating. They're online using social media. in very dynamic ways. It's not just, it still is, grandma sending a little Facebook text, but a lot of it now increasingly looks like using social media platforms like a search engine. You don't just go on Google anymore. You go on YouTube to look for whatever it is. You go on Facebook or your WhatsApp groups, especially in certain markets, which are so-called mobile first markets. So we said 4.7 billion people are on the internet, 4.1 billion are active social media users. And by the way, I just wanted to highlight, nearly 100% of them, 99%, use that via social media as well as their computers. So mobile, online, social media, those are the three big criteria of this. And it is still growing. Something like 320 million people went on the internet for the first time this year. That's the same as the population of the United States. So, this is good news. This is good news for North Carolina companies. No matter what your size, North Carolina companies know that they can find their prospective buyers and their existing clients, and they can communicate with them because they're all online. So you can find them online and you can communicate with them online. And that's good news in this time. So what does that mean in terms of your strategy now? And we did a whole webinar earlier about localization and localized websites. So I won't go into that again, just to reiterate what that means in terms of your e-commerce, a similar feeling of localization. So very often, what we like to show this slide to say, you can have a North Carolina e-commerce website or North Carolina website, which has its own SEO and social media strategies, Amazon or e-commerce strategies circling it, orbiting it. And plugging into that home website will be your satellite websites, if you like. In this case, we've chosen France and Brazil, but it could be, Korea and India, or China and Middle East, wherever it is. These other websites which you have, which are localized so that they are relevant to those local markets. And that becomes seriously important when you're doing e-commerce. You need to build trust with e-commerce. And you're not going to build trust unless your websites and your e-commerce platforms and your social media and your SEO all resonates with relevance in that local market. So if I'm sitting in Australia and I want your product, I'm going to really hesitate to buy unless I really see that you know how to deal with an Australian client, that you're relevant for me, that you can ship to me, that I can, all those things. And that means you're hosted in Australia, you're localized in Australia, and so on, let alone when it becomes something more complex like, China or the Middle East or Brazil, for that matter. Let me show you an example of the kind of thing I mean by localization. Now, Samantha and I both have very noisy dogs. They're lovely pets, but they bark, especially during webinars. So don't be surprised if we suddenly get some barking. Samantha is based in Florida. She went on google.com, which is her search engine, and looked up squeakless dog toys. And squeakless dog toys in google.com got her things that she knew. Chewy.com, Amazon.com, a great little blog from Yahoo about lifestyle and dog-obsessed squeakless toys. I'm sitting in the UK. I go to google.co.uk. Same company, different search engine, because what's relevant for me is not the same as what's relevant for Samantha. I don't get the same search results. I get barksandbunnies.co.uk, timeforpause.co.uk, amazon.co.uk. So that's what a localized website looks like. It's relevant for those individual markets. If you want to learn more about website localization, we have other assets on that, but we want to focus today on e-commerce. But what I wanted to say now, just in summary, why do North Carolina exporters need localized e-commerce and online business development tools? Because you can find your prospects and engage with your prospects and do business with your prospects and existing clients with them. So the world's online. You need to be online too. And you need to have really good, functioning, optimal online tools, websites, online marketing, and those websites can be e-commerce enabled or not. Before we go on, I'm actually going to run a poll. I'm going to do a little poll, make sure you're all there. Are you already active in e-commerce? So please grab your mouses and respond. Let us know if you are already engaged. If so, are you doing this internationally and domestically only, internationally, or if you're still thinking about it? And I can give you a little bit of response. Thank you for those people who are so quick on this. Thank you, appreciate that. I'd say, guess what? There's almost nobody who's only international. No surprise there. But I'd say otherwise it's pretty evenly split. You're very evenly split between those people who are thinking about it, domestic only, and international and domestic. So some of you are already well down the path, internationally and domestically engaged in e-commerce. Well done. Right, I'm gonna close that poll now. Close that poll, how do I close that poll? Here we go, close the poll. And look at some of the global e-commerce landscape.
Excellent. Thanks, Susanna. So first things first, we need to get a sense of how big e-commerce globally is. $3.5 trillion globally. Out of a total world population of about 7.5 billion, 4.5 billion are online, and 4.5 billion are online, and 3.4 billion are shopping online. Meaning 45% of the world's population are buying online, and it's only increasing. For example, at the start of the year, Amazon's boarded a valuation of about 920 billion. Now it's worth 1.49 trillion, meaning Amazon's stock has increased by more than 60% this year. This is supported by the increase of consumer spending on Amazon, which between May and July was up 60% from the same time frame last year. Not only that, but another platform that we will review later, Shopify, shared their gross merchandise volume, which is the measure of customers' total spending through Shopify's network stores, rose 119% year on year in the second quarter to 30.1 billion. And it's absolutely a global phenomenon. So based on the last slide, we already know that China and the United States are huge e-commerce markets, but worth about 740 billion and 560 billion. But keep in mind that Europe is also large. And if you take the region as a whole, it's about the same size as the US. So on the last slide, there's an e-commerce snapshot of e-commerce adoption worldwide, with an average of 74% of internet users saying that they bought something online in the past month. What I find interesting in this specific graph are the countries that have greater penetration of e-commerce than the United States, who aren't in the top 10 of B2C global e-commerce numbers, like Indonesia, Thailand, the Philippines, Poland, and Ireland. E-commerce is being adopted worldwide and not just in the main markets, and it's projected to grow even more. So let's take a quick look at the different types of e-commerce activities and habits of your consumers online. And you'll see that 82% of internet browsers have gone and searched online for something to buy, which is why SEO is just absolutely so critical. 52% of them have made a purchase on a mobile device, which is why having an e-commerce site or localized site that is mobile friendly is also vital. And something not included in this slide that we think is worth mentioning is that 57% of consumers have purchased goods from another country. This is why a local user experience on your site and your storefront needs to be a priority, regardless of what platform you're using. And it wouldn't be e-commerce without mentioning social media strategy. So social media strategy is one-to-one medium, which gives you and your company a chance to market in a direct but very human way. So first, it allows you to expand your other marketing efforts. So your content has the chance to be seen by a wide audience, and hopefully the right audience if you did the work in defining your buyer persona. Build brand awareness. So gone are the days when you could the only way to build the same awareness was through billboards and ads on TV or a magazine or other ads. But with social media, you have the ability to bring your brand content directly to your ideal buyer persona, your partners, and your prospects. So now you can be where your audience really is. And social media is one of the most powerful ways to connect with your audiences. Sprout Social reports that when customers follow a brand on social media, 67% of consumers are more likely to spend more with spend more with that brand, and 78% say that they'll visit the brand's physical retail store. This is especially true among millennials, with 84% saying that they are more likely to buy from a brand that they follow on social media. And online tools in general, not just social media, but also a really good online presence, levels the playing field. It allows you to kind of punch above your weight so that you can compete against companies that are much larger than you are. But if you have a really great social media presence and online presence, it makes you look much larger than your company really is. But what's important to keep in mind is that all of this is not just for B2C companies. It is not just for direct to consumer, but it's also for B2B e-commerce. So many people think that e-commerce is just selling to individual consumers sitting in their homes, and they're surprised at the prevalence of e-commerce for B2B transactions. It's kind of challenging to get consistent data, but by all measurements, it is absolutely huge. Statista estimated a global B2B e-commerce market to be valued at about 10.6 trillion in 2019, which is 3.5 times the size of the B2C e-commerce market. So please don't disregard e-commerce if you're a B2B company. But remember, whether it's B2B or a B2C transaction, you're still communicating with and engaging with a person on the other side. And what this means is even if your B2B product or service is a really high price point and it's extremely customized to each individual customer, maybe you take a more consultative sales approach, your website has to be compelling enough to encourage a call to action to convince the customer to request a contact, because he or she is already doing their online research. And the influence of a smart website development and strategic online marketing are absolutely critical in these times. As you can see here, when people are researching a brand, over 50% use search engines as their primary source of information, with social media networks being a close second with 43%. So with all of that information in hand, I'm going to hand over to Susanna to cover the international e-commerce options for North Carolina exporters.
Thanks, Samantha. Right, we're gonna zoom through and please continue putting those questions in. We appreciate that. So we're going to look at some of the big international options that we see as possibilities for North Carolina exporters here. And I guess summarizing it all on obviously every company is individually, but we try to sort of give you an overall picture. We basically see the following four types. You can go on the big generalist marketplaces, Amazons of the world. You can go on to very specific specialist marketplaces and in-market distributors. They play a key role. You can do everything yourself, sort of a DIY approach, or else you can combine various parts of this for various different markets. Going through the pros and cons of that, it's quite interesting. First, let's talk about the generalist marketplaces. And this map here shows you obviously the strength of the big players. I mean, Amazon and Orange, it's just everywhere. But note how large some of the secondary player or huge regional players are. Mercado Libre in Latin America, Alibaba throughout China and the Southeast Asian markets. This, by the way, includes Alibaba's subsidiaries like things and certain Mercado Libre subsidiaries too. There are other ones too. So you have choices when you do look at those big global players, with Amazon being the elephant in the room, as it were. There are also then specialist marketplaces and in-market distributors. We class them as two types here because they share some similarities for that. Specialist marketplaces are typically ones that are defined for B2B companies. And here we've highlighted one called PartSpace, the US one, which specializes in the aeronautics and aerospace businesses. And you can go on there and you can post yourself as a company and people can search for you. It's like a specialized online platform for that sector. And it kind of works in a similar way to in-market distributors websites, which are generalist distributors. There are pros and cons to this. Typically, as you can see, your product is right next to someone else's product. And Otherwise, who really has brand control? That's the thing. We'll get onto that in a minute. I just wanted to note just how many sort of, huge online marketplaces there are. I've listed the top 20 on this slide, starting with Amazon down to Zalando in Europe as the top 20. It's interesting to note the size of some of them. Amazon, as I said, the global leader with 6 billion visits a month. Quite a bit down from that is PayPal Mail. Do you use PayPal Mail? Anyone know that one? It's Japan, really. At 2 billion users a month. Then eBay, 1.5 billion users, and then drops really down. But in specific countries, these are very, very dominant in specific countries. If in Germany, for example, Zalando is actually bigger than Amazon. Half of these are traditional retailers, Target, Best Buy, things like that. So Walmart. So again, those are the companies that have really succeeded as an online play. Here's also some slides. And there's a couple of you asking this, so I'll answer now. Yes, you do get a recording of this webinar, so you'll have this as well. Here's a slide just that shows you the regional marketplaces as well. So, Walmart, Target are very much USA focused, although they're starting to expand by acquisition, particularly Walmart. Wayfair is present in North America and Europe. Rakuten is global, but dominant in Japan. And so on. If you look at some of the other regional marketplaces in South America, you get a very different view. Again, Mercado Libre and so on. So one of the big choices you're going to have to make is if you want to go on a platform, which platform? A big global, typical regional, bit of both, and then finally as a last one, this is the regional for Europe. Again, starting with Amazon, but you're very quickly into Zalando, Allegro, Cdiscount, Otto, Fnac, and so on. And then for Southeast Asia, Lazada, which is partially owned by Alibaba too. And then the subsequent list you have here. And then finally for China, just quickly, largest being Taobao, but JD.com, Tmall, Amazon has a big place there too. So those are those big regional and big global players in marketplaces. As you can see, you have a huge choice. So the next one to go is looking at your own global e-commerce platform. And again, you've got a huge choice about what kind of platforms to use. Shopify, Woo, BigCommerce, Magento, Presto, Weebly. There's a lot of different of types. What I would say throughout is it's really important to have a few absolute non-negotiables. They have to be mobile responsive. They have to have a complete tech stack. They really important to have a simple user interface, things like that. And some of them are better than others at this, and some of them go internationally better than others. So be careful on that. If you are looking at your own e-commerce global platform, I'd say the top 4 that we see coming again and again: Shopify, BigCommerce, Magento, WooCommerce. Shopify being the big winner, I'd say, of the last 6 months. It is present in 175 countries and is supported in those countries quite well. So it does have, it's a great platform for international. But if you are very large or have a lot of SKUs, careful, because sometimes it can be a little bit difficult on that one. So just a little word of warning on Shopify. Go to Shopify Plus. We wanted also to highlight sort of, I guess, a combination of all of these. And I said that some of them have advantages and disadvantages. A generalist marketplace, like a specialist marketplace, the big advantage is a lot of the heavy lifting gets taken care of. You have to just provide your product and pay the bills. But I would say be wary of paying that bill. It can be large. There's a setup fee. There's commission fees. There's advertising fees. There's on many of them as well. You have to commit to certain levels of marketing and marketing spend. And remember that every time you're marketing, you're building their brand. as well as yours. But you're mainly actually building their brand. So who really benefits from you going on to the marketplace? Well, it's Amazon's brand that gets most well known. Is your brand really the one that's benefiting from that? Are you really benefiting from being cheek by jowl with your main competitor in terms of pricing, in terms of product description? So those are the things you have to be wary of. Building your own e-commerce platform is tough. You need to be good at tech. You need to have a support service. You need to have 24/7 call out, and be pretty good at tech. We know this. We have tech teams who do this, and they're mind-bogglingly clever. Yes, there are platforms that you can buy in, but it gets really complicated really fast, especially if you're going internationally. So all of these three strategies have pluses and minuses from them. And depends on your individual company on which ones you want to go with first. I would say that for many companies, option 2 is one we see them frequently going for. If they're smaller, or if they're B2C, then they'll probably go for an option 1. Not many companies go for own e-commerce platform, all their own, for all their international markets. It's a tough one. It's an ambitious one. In the long-term one, it is very good for your brand and brand sustainability and brand growth, but it's big investment. I guess in summary, one of the things we would say is that if you have a localized website in that market, you can mitigate a lot of the downside of having one of these generalist or specialist marketplaces. So with a localized website to back up your brand and do your own marketing in those websites, in those countries, you then can build brand awareness, and you can actually use those big marketplaces and platforms almost like a logistics supplier rather than someone who's going to build your brand, because they're not. So with a localized website in your target market, you develop your brand awareness and you control your marketing and your marketing spend. And then you bounce off the local platforms and use them, but use them for the minimum amount of service that they can provide. That's particularly logistics, it's Incoterms, it's helping you import, export better. But in terms of brand awareness, lead generation, marketing, differentiating your product, making sure there's no conflict of interest or parallel pricing, a localized website can mitigate a lot of that. So that's a big takeaway from us, from the experience we've seen from working with clients on this. I'm going to turn to Samantha now to talk to us a bit about sort of best practices and the online global programs in total. Samantha.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Susanna. So with all of that in mind that Susanna just described with localized websites, e-commerce platforms, I spoke a little bit about social media. Lucky for North Carolina companies, the EDPNC and IBT Online jointly has these North Carolina online global programs. So what we do is we build and manage international websites and international online marketing. And for each company, these websites can come in all different shapes and sizes and functionalities. And there are a lot of different motivations for companies to get international websites. So here we have listed here a few of the most common ones. For example, lead generation, brand awareness, B2C, customer influence, opinion, B2B distributor recruitment or support. But to summarize, the localized websites, e-commerce platforms, and localized online marketing means giving the local user experience to your prospects and your clients. So in the next few slides, I want to share the North Carolina online global programs and some practical examples of companies who have been through the process. So first we have our option A and option B programs. So option A is a 2-market expansion. So by the end of option A, you'll have 2 fully localized websites for your top 2 target markets based off of your US website. So the look, the feel will look very similar to your main domestic US website. But we will go through a whole localization process, including helping you buy domain names, making sure it's hosted within the country, regulatory compliance, design, making sure it's mobile friendly, translation, SEO, all of those things that that localization means, we'll go through that process for you in option A with a limited scope. And option A, it's worth mentioning that option A is $12,000, so 2 websites, 12 web pages, and 2,000 words. And the EDPNC has step grants available for both options A and B. Option B has to do with anything above and beyond the scope of work of option A. So say, for example, you're interested in a new website redesign, or you want new content, you want CRM integrations. All of that is covered under option B, and the budget is just dependent on your specific scope of work. So in the first example is a company called PALLADIO Beauty. And PALLADIO Beauty is a company that is both B2B and B2C. So they sell beauty products, obviously. What really mattered to them is in their international markets, having brand consistency. That's what mattered to them, making sure that they had control over their brands, that their brand looked the same in Saudi Arabia and Mexico as it did in the US. So what we did is they participated in option A. So we created 2 websites localized for the top 2 target markets. So one for Mexico and one for Saudi Arabia. And we did a search engine optimization afterwards, ongoing keyword research, and we wanted to make sure that the imagery, that the messaging was absolutely on point and on trend for those two specific markets. So within website localization, something that you always need to keep in mind when creating a new website is that you need to support it with some sort of online marketing.
Samantha, can I interrupt you very rudely here?
Yeah,
can I
please.
interrupt just very quickly? Sorry. I'm going to launch another poll. Just in the middle of your speech, I'm going to launch another poll. If anyone would like to learn more about localized websites, and particularly the option A or option B and the North Carolina Online Global programs and the funding that's available for that, please let us know. If you'd like, if you're still thinking about it, or if you want us to reach out to you and say, what is it all about? How do I do this? I'm interested in getting two localized websites for 2 markets, and I'm interested in getting the funding. I can give you some good feedback. It looks like a lot of you want to know more, so I'm very pleased about that. Thank you very much indeed for that. And I think I'm going to close the poll now and hand back to Samantha to talk to you about the next steps.
Excellent. Thanks, Susanna. So once you have a localized website or localized e-commerce platform, we always want to communicate with your buyer persona in those markets. And we always suggest that you do that with social media marketing as well as search engine marketing. So here we've highlighted some codes on the slide about the importance of social media in e-commerce. For example, nearly 40% of Middle East consumers use social media to buy products, or how intertwined social media is with everyday lives of consumers and businesses across Latin America. And this is a trend that is seeing growth across the globe as consumers and businesses turn to online solutions to drive their sales. So e-commerce everywhere is a competitive place, not just for B2C, but also really competitive for B2B companies. And engaging with your buyer persona is the differentiating factor for success in a lot of these cases. So for that, we have option C. So option C is international online marketing. So once you have your localized online presence, whether it's with e-commerce or without e-commerce, we always suggest that you do some sort of international online marketing to support it. And you can do this internally, or you can ask us to do it for you as well, where we would kind of aim to be your in-house, out-house online marketing team. And we would do monthly ongoing search engine marketing, social media marketing, and reporting and analytics for your international websites. And then
again, Samantha, can I launch another poll? Can I interrupt you again? Sorry.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, okay. Let's launch another poll here just to ask people if they're interested in learning more about the international online marketing sites, whether that's search engine optimization, search engine marketing, social media marketing, and obviously the reporting and analytics that go with it. And again, there are step grants available for these programs for North Carolina exporters. You know, they form an important integral part of any online strategy. You can no longer just build it and leave it. You need to have something that waves the flag as well. So again, grab your mice and let us know if this is of interest to you, and we'd be happy to reach out and, you know, give you more information as it is. And again, thank you so much for enthusiastic replies. For those who have asked, we will be getting in touch with you on that and letting you know about the online global programs and funding that's available. I'm going to close that poll. Hand back to Samantha.
Excellent. So our last option is option E, and for this specific webinar, it's option E for e-commerce. So e-commerce, we would build you a localized e-commerce platform for your top target market with, you know, the appropriate payment gateways, making sure that the design is aesthetically pleasing for the local user. And this is all driven by your specific scope of work and your needs and your objectives. So if you are a company that only has like 50 SKUs, a few products, then that would be one statement of work and one budget. And then if you're a company with a really large amount of products, large amount of SKUs, then that would be another budget, and we would be happy to discuss that with you. But we would be there to build your e-commerce websites and maintain them for you as well. And I think we have time for one more poll.
Absolutely. Let me launch another poll, the last poll on this one. Guess what it is? Would you like to learn more about the e-commerce option E for the North Carolina online global programs and the funding that goes away with it? What we can do for you, how many SKUs that represents, which markets, how you're looking at that. We'll talk about, you know, different platforms available for you and the different strategies, and drill down and give you a good strategy according to your business needs. So if that's of interest, please let us know, and we can get back to you about that and have a good chat about what the possibilities are. Again, I appreciate that you've all been voting. The majority of you voted anyway. Thank you very much indeed. And just to say, you know, an awful lot of you would like to have more information on that. We're very pleased to provide that. We're going to close out poll and hand back to Samantha.
Thanks, Susanna. So we wanted to share a couple of other case studies that participated in these online global programs. And the first one is Farkla. And Farkla realized that, as the quote says, the world is changing, it's online. So they wanted to take advantage of the online global programs. And they decided to go online global in China and the UK. And they actually have plans to extend above that to their other target markets as well. So what we did is we built them a localized platform to help their distributors and their partners in those markets purchase, use their localized website as their #1 sales and marketing tool, so that they can reach their potential market, their potential customers, and give them the appropriate information. So we created these localized websites, and we also do localized marketing campaigns through social media and search engine optimization. So as a product that's pretty B2B, they do participate in social media and continuous search engine marketing as well. So then in the next example, we have Vapor Pins, and Vapor Pins was a company that they were trying to create a Brazilian e-commerce site themselves, or they had another partner, and for some reason it just wasn't working. The translation was wrong. The platform that they were using was incorrect. They didn't do proper SEO, so their e-commerce platform in Brazil just wasn't being successful. So they reached out to us to be able to rebuild their Brazilian e-commerce platform, and we did that, and we supported it with localized marketing campaigns, both through social media and through search engine optimization or search engine marketing. And we were able to be really successful in the Brazilian market for them. So they have international e-commerce websites for Brazil, Spanish-speaking Latin America, and also Australia and New Zealand. So a really nice case study of how a localized e-commerce platform can really look like and function.
Samantha, that's great. I think we're going to zoom through because there's quite a few questions that are coming in, and I'd like to save some time for that. So just really summarizing a few things from our point. You know, the top slides for us that we'd like you to take on board from this is really that, you know, the world is online, as we said earlier, and if anything, this whole new online normal, this pandemic has really accelerated all that. So, you know, you're not going to be able to go to the trade show. You're not going to be able to walk around the shop floor of your prospective buyer. So how do you reach them? How do you find them? You need online tools. And in today's environment, they exist and they're affordable. And North Carolina and the EDPNC has really given you a big helping hand. So take advantage of it to get localized websites, online marketing, e-commerce websites enabled. The next thing we really wanted to emphasize with you is that e-commerce success, actually domestically as well as internationally, requires preparation. You need to make sure that all your actions, everything's done in advance. You've got your returns policy, your logistics, and so on. But then you need to know your buyer persona and the journey they take to find you and to engage with you and to buy from you. Next, choose the right e-commerce model. And I zoomed through it, sorry, but we can have one-on-one conversations if you want more in depth on that. And then use a localized approach in order to safeguard your brand. If you just let the big platforms take over, you will not have control of your brand. If you use a localized website, localized online marketing, and so on, then you can control your brand, control your marketing pricing, and have less parallel pricing, for example, have more pricing control in those markets and long-term brand growth. The final big takeaway is obviously online global programs exist for North Carolina companies. They're very effective. They work. They're well-trodden paths, and they help you reach new markets, grow your business internationally. And I put this in to remind myself. We've left a handout there. You can grab it. It's an infographic about the top 3 e-commerce countries, and you can take it. It's an Adobe file on the right-hand side of your screen. You should be able to just drag it off. It's just an infographic that'll show you some of the stats on the top 3 worldwide e-commerce markets. It's kind of fun to look at and see the dominance of China, but also how big UK, France, and Germany are. Interesting. Anyway, so have a look at that and let us know if you have any questions on that. So that leaves me just really for questions. And some of the first questions I have are actually for John. John, can you tell us what the eligibility criteria are for the grants in a nutshell?
And we've got that all laid out on the website. At this point, if you are considered a registered small business by the SBA, you'll apply. You can apply for the program. You're eligible for the program, but we follow the SBA's definition of small business.
Okay. Perhaps another question, which someone's asking if I can put the other slide back on, which had all the data, all the contact names for your EDPNC. Perhaps again, that's on your website.
Absolutely, EDPNC, and we have a page for export assistance. You'll find all the contacts right there.
And then again, just about the logistics of the program, is it time limited? We need to do this in December. Is it still available in December?
So what's interesting is we have just begun year 2. On October 1st, we began year 2 of a 2-year program with the SBA. So funds that were not used from year 1 have rolled over to this year. So what I would tell anyone who's interested is you work with us now, you take advantage of the year 1 funds, you finish up that scope of work, and then you can tap into year 2. So we've actually got 2 years that we're working with, but the work's got to be done before September 30th of 2021. So there is a bit of a time issue related to the program.
Yeah, good to know. Okay. Okay. How long does it take to process grant? How long does it take to process grant criteria? But I think they mean the paperwork.
Yeah, we're turning these around within 24 hours. And so what I would tell folks is reach out to the team and we'll get you through this quickly.
Thank you, John. Just about timing, Samantha, how long does it take to get the websites live? We have a new product launch in Jan 2021.
Yeah, great question. So our option A, which is the 2 websites limited scope, takes about 3 months, but it can be a little less if communication's real good between your side and our technical team. And then e-commerce, the e-commerce program can take 4 months. It just depends on your scope of work, how many pages, how many words, etc.
Can I convert my localized website into an e-commerce enabled website?
Yes, you can. Absolutely. If you let us know ahead of time, like when we're starting the project, that that's something that you might consider down the line, you can absolutely do that.
Can we integrate our CRM with an e-commerce platform internationally? And method, yep.
In light of time, short answer, yes, absolutely, we would be happy to.
Okay, there's a couple more questions about Shopify and things. We will get back to you directly on some of these, and this one about multiple currencies, we'll get back to you directly on this. I wanted to say major thank you, John, and thank you, Samantha, for joining us today and talking this through. Thank you most of all to North Carolina companies for attending. We know you've all got busy schedules. You know we know you're all webinared out, so we're glad that you participated today, and happy exporting goods. Stay well, stay good with your business. Let us know if there's anything we can do to help, and we look forward to seeing you online and offline. It'd be nice. Anyway, take care. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you all, and we'll be in touch soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.